In October 2024, Iberia received an aircraft. No massive ceremony, no global coverage. 3 weeks later, that plane crossed the Atlantic. Sounds normal, right? Except for one thing. By the end of 2024, Airbus had already accumulated over 550 firm orders for this plane from at least 25 airlines around the world. For context, the A350 took 5 years to reach that milestone. Indigo jumped in with 69 units, American and United with 50 each, Qantas with 36, Air Canada with 30, Wizz Air with 47. That represents a backlog committed for nearly a full decade of production, and it keeps growing. Recent Airbus data points to a significant increase in new flights and routes across Asia-Pacific, with airlines already in talks to acquire more A321XLRs. And the most striking part? Most of the routes this plane will fly didn't even exist before. Mid-sized American cities connected directly to Europe. No layovers, no leaving your seat. So what's behind this aircraft that could genuinely reshape the strategy of dozens of airlines and call into question the need for wide-body jets at many carriers?
If you're also passionate about the world of aviation, consider subscribing to the channel and supporting our team.
The concept is a well-validated product in the market. Airbus introduced it in 1993, and it entered service with Lufthansa in January 1994. It was essentially a stretched A320, 7 extra meters of fuselage to carry more passengers on short and medium routes. It worked well, but it had no greater ambitions. In 2010, Airbus announced the A320neo, new engine option, and the elongated version, the A321neo, arrived with CFM LEAP or Pratt & Whitney PW1100G engines, far more efficient. Range reached up to 7,400 kilometers in the LR version. That was a considerable leap. But then came the XLR, extra long range, and it's different. It's not just more of the same. Look at the progression. A321-100, original, 4,300 kilometers range. A321neo, 7,400 kilometers. A321LR, also 7,400 kilometers with specific configuration. A321XLR, 8,700 kilometers, equivalent to up to 11 hours of flight. That's a lot. In 30 years, maximum takeoff weight grew 20%, passenger capacity grew 10%, but range doubled. There has never been a jump this large within the same aircraft family, and to achieve it, Airbus did something that sounds simple but required years of engineering. From the outside, the A321XLR is virtually indistinguishable from a standard A321neo. Same fuselage, same sharklets on the wingtips, same cockpit. The revolution is hidden beneath the floor. The central innovation of the XLR is the RCT, rear center tank, a permanent reservoir integrated into the rear fuselage structure with a capacity of 12,900 liters of fuel. That's an additional 10.6 tons of kerosene carried structurally without occupying cargo space. For context, a standard A320neo carries 19 tons of fuel. The XLR carries about 30% more, and that difference is what transforms the aircraft. Beyond the RCT, there are other important changes. The MTOW, maximum takeoff weight, rose to 101.5 tons versus 97 tons on the standard Neo. To support this, the landing gear was reinforced. The wing flaps were redesigned to maintain takeoff performance at higher weights, and the fuselage structure received over 200 specific modifications relative to the base model. The numbers: range, 4,700 nautical miles, or 8,700 kilometers. Maximum flight time, 11 hours. Typical two-class configuration, 180 to 220 passengers. Maximum single-class configuration, 244 passengers. Fuel consumption per seat, 30% lower than previous generation aircraft. And cost per flight, approximately 40% less than a modern wide-body. And it's precisely that cost figure that has been capturing the industry's attention. This isn't marketing, it's what's leading airlines to question the logic of operating wide-bodies on medium-haul routes, where demand is real but moderate.
When you talk about long-range narrow-bodies, one name comes up immediately: the Boeing 757. It entered service in 1983. It was designed to replace the 727 and ended up becoming the preferred aircraft for American carriers on low-demand transatlantic routes, precisely because it could cross the Atlantic with fewer than 200 passengers economically. It had a range of 3,900 nautical miles, 7,250 kilometers, and capacity for between 200 and 240 passengers. The problem? The Boeing 757 went out of production in 2004. The last units were delivered in 2005. Today, the global fleet ages with no direct replacement. Boeing tried. In 2015, it began studying the NMA, New Mid-Sized Airplane, informally known as the Boeing 797. In 2017, carriers like United and American showed formal interest, but in January 2020, Boeing abandoned the project to focus on the 737 MAX crisis. That decision created a vacuum, and Airbus stepped in. To understand where the XLR wins and where it still falls short, consider this. The 757 was engineered with high-thrust engines for short runways and hot conditions. At airports like Denver, at 1,600 meters of elevation with summer heat, the 757 takes off with greater margin. On a 2,000-meter runway at 35 degrees Celsius, it has a real raw performance advantage the XLR doesn't fully match. For airlines that need that extreme flexibility, it matters. Where the XLR wins, and wins by a wide margin. Efficiency. The XLR burns 30% less fuel per seat. The XLR has guaranteed support for decades, with parts available in the global secondary market. And for airlines that already operate the A320neo family, the XLR uses the same type rating. A pilot certified on the A320neo or even the A330 can fly the XLR with minimal transition training. That's worth millions per year in training costs and crew scheduling. Up to this point, you might be thinking, okay, it replaces the 757. That makes sense. But here's what most people aren't seeing. The A321XLR isn't just replacing old narrow bodies. It's replacing modern wide bodies on routes where nobody imagined that would be possible. Think about it this way. An A330-900 costs around $300 million to purchase. A 787-9, depending on the contract, lists at around $290 million. You need 250, 280, 300 passengers to fill the plane, an average load factor of 85 to 88% to justify the investment. Now imagine a route between a mid-sized American city, say Indianapolis, and Dublin. There's demand, but not enough demand for 280 passengers 4 times a week. With a wide-body, that route is a massive financial risk. You don't operate it. With the XLR, that same route with 184 passengers 4 times a week suddenly becomes mathematically viable. And this isn't theory, it's what's happening right now. Aer Lingus, the Irish carrier, received its first 2 XLRs in December 2024. In April 2025, it launched Dublin-Nashville. In May, Dublin-Indianapolis. Nashville had only ever had 1 direct flight to Europe before. Indianapolis hadn't had a direct transatlantic flight since Delta suspended its Paris route in 2020. The A321XLR restored transatlantic connectivity to cities that had lost it. Iberia was the launch operator. It received the first XLR in October 2024 and completed the first long-haul transatlantic flight with the type in November 2024, Madrid to Boston. Today, it also operates the aircraft on Madrid-Washington Dulles, nearly 4,000 miles away. American Airlines has an aggressive strategy. Brian Zatines, the airline's network planning executive, publicly stated that the goal is to reach smaller destinations in Spain, Portugal, France, Germany, and Scandinavia, cities where a wide-body simply isn't the right aircraft.
United Airlines ordered 50 XLRs specifically to replace its 757-200 fleet and expand to up to 12 new routes from the East Coast to Eastern Europe and North Africa.
Wizz Air, the ultra-low-cost carrier based in Central Europe, ordered 47 units. Their strategy is the boldest: use the same aircraft for one-hour domestic flights today and open medium-haul international routes tomorrow. Air Canada is preparing for a record 2026, using the new Airbus A321XLR as a cornerstone for capacity expansion, gradually replacing the Boeing 737 MAX on the mainline operation and enabling longer routes with greater efficiency. The core concept across all these cases is the same: democratizing long-haul travel while significantly reducing wide-body dependence. Is this a trend? No competitor, wide-body or narrow-body, offers what the XLR offers in dual flexibility. A 787 crosses the Atlantic beautifully, but the next day, it can't efficiently complete 6 45-minute domestic hops. It wasn't designed for that. The cost per cycle explodes. The XLR flies 10 hours to Boston and can still handle domestic routes with 8 daily flights between nearby cities at the same base operating cost as a conventional narrow-body. That means no new crew training, no changes to maintenance infrastructure, and dramatically lower airport costs. The financial result is direct: lower risk per route, higher fleet utilization, higher operating margins. But hold on, there's clearly a benefit for the airlines. What about passengers? It would be dishonest not to address the question at the center of much of the debate around the XLR. Aer Lingus operates the aircraft with 168 economy seats in a 3-3 configuration. Seat pitch is 30 to 31 inches, slightly tighter than the wide-body standard on most transatlantic routes. There is no premium economy on their aircraft. Iberia configured theirs with 186 seats, including 14 in business class. Airlines have responded to the comfort challenge in different ways. Aer Lingus, Iberia, and American Airlines offer full flat business class, seats that recline completely into a bed with 18-inch 4K screens and Wi-Fi throughout. The real problem lies in economy. 10 hours in a single-aisle seat with no premium economy as an intermediate option is a clear compromise. Passengers arrive at their destination, but they arrive with the physical consequences of a long flight in a tighter space. And here is the honest trade-off: more non-stop destinations versus less physical space. Recent surveys conducted by airlines showed greater passenger preference for non-stop flights over connections. The answer isn't universal, but the booking numbers on Iberia's, Aer Lingus's, and American's new routes suggest that most passengers, when given the choice, pick the non-stop. The A321XLR is not a revolution. It's not a generational leap like the 747 or the 787. From the outside, it looks like an ordinary aircraft. From the inside, it is the maximum evolution of a family that has existed for 30 years. But the effects are proving disruptive. Over 550 firm orders for an aircraft that entered service in 2024. That represents extraordinarily high demand for this business model. The question this leaves you with is, would you fly on an A321XLR in economy, middle seat, sharing the row with 2 other people for 10 hours?